Tell me enough just to fill up this circle.
In a couple words, I would say motorcycle crash.
Okay. So at the time that it happened, on a scale from 1 to 10, or 0 to 10, 0 being nothing at all, 10 being just outrageously important, how distressing was it to you at the time?
At the time, I would want to say about a 7 or an 8.
Okay, 7 or 8, which one?
I'm going to go 8.
Okay. And as you sit here with me now, today, sometime later, how distressing is it?
I still feel the pain in my leg when I think of it, so I'd say it's probably like a 3.
Okay. So, how long ago was this?
No, this would have been 10 years ago.
Okay. So in 10 years, you've taken it from an 8 to a 3. Mm-hmm. Okay. So as you kind of look at this difference between 8 and 3, and that's, it's a 5-point difference, it's pretty significant. What is the most essential thing that you have been able to get yourself to do to bring it from an 8 to a 3?
It sounds odd, but talking to my brother probably was one of the biggest things to push it down.
Okay, talking to your brother. So that was one of the things that brought it from an 8 to a 3.
Yes.
What's the next thing that you did to bring it from an 8 to a 3?
It took a little bit of time and healing, but a big thing was getting back on a bike again.
Okay. What kind of bike?
It was a motorcycle. It was a ZX6R, which is a nice way to say a 600cc Kawasaki.
Yeah. Okay, close enough. All right. So talking to your brother was the first thing that helped you move it from an 8 to a 3. Getting back on a motorcycle was the next thing that helped you move it from an 8 to a 3. What else?
I had a really close friend. His name was Brian, and talking to him helped out as well. He had, not currently at that time, but in the past, he was riding dirt bikes, and he kind of had an understanding a little bit of it as well. The next big one was honestly being able to, because a big thing that happened at that time is I couldn't play sports anymore. So, because it damaged my knee pretty bad, so I was a first-string nose tackle, and I had to quit the team at that time, and I wasn't able to stick with it. So being able to go to the gym helped out a lot because I got some like that physical energy.
Okay, so going to the gym helped. And so that's 4 things. Was there any other?
There's talking to different family members, even working on the bike. I kind of left it alone for a while, but working on it to fix it again,
okay,
I think was a piece of it to help, because that took some time to repair the damage. It was totaled after that, so.
Okay. So we have 5 things: talking to your brother, getting back on a motorcycle, talking to Brian, your friend, dirt bike friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Going to the gym, and you started to repair the motorcycle. Which of these would you like to start with?
Talking to my brother, because I called him first.
Okay.
Right after the crash, I had a lot of adrenaline in my system. And the first thing I did was to call him to apologize for crashing the bike.
Was it his bike?
It was his bike. At that time, he was letting me ride it to learn on it while I worked the money up to purchase it from him.
Okay. So you called your brother.
Yeah.
And so that was the first action you took after the accident, was to call him? Mm-hmm. Was that before you went to the hospital, after the hospital?
Oddly enough, that was beforehand. So I was going around this corner. The motorcycle slid out because it was cold, and the tires were what we call slicks, and you have to heat those tires up and properly heat them up enough. I was going around this corner at night, and it slid out, and my knee got trapped under it, and it dragged me along, and then hit the corner and started flipping. And at that point, as soon as it happened, the first thing I did was to try and get up and get over to it. I was having trouble with my leg getting over to it. So I pulled the phone out and I called my brother and was really apologetic to him, trying to get him to forgive me for damaging his bike at that time. And, I couldn't even get the bike upright because I couldn't get my leg working well enough at that point.
So you called your brother, and what did talking to him do to help you move it from an 8 to a 3?
Talking to him when he said he doesn't care about the bike and I need to get to the hospital probably put it to a 6 almost immediately.
Okay.
To be honest, even getting his I'm not mad at you, but you need to take care of yourself helped out and got me into the moment.
So your brother's acceptance, is that not the right word?
I'd say acceptance approval type thing.
Okay.
Yeah, just to have him be okay with what happened and not to be angry with me. And I'm not saying that's a rational response to it, but that's what I was feeling.
So,
because he was important to me.
So your brother's acceptance of the situation and his focus on your health, your well-being?
Yeah.
Okay. So is that the same thing, or are those two separate things?
Those are the same.
Okay.
I mean, in that same conversation, and those were kind of, I'd say they're connected completely.
Okay. Was there, other than the fact that you were riding his motorcycle, what were the other reasons you decided to reach out to your brother? Why your brother instead of your dad or I know why you didn't call your mom, but
he'd answer the phone right away, and he was a big support to me. We'd always be together. I mean, at that time we were both living in the house, and that was right before he has left for college. So we're both living in the house day-to-day basis. I probably had the most communication with him. We did the most things together. And so it was just kind of like my reaction of give him a call. I mean, I'd talk to him, he'd give me advice.
Okay. So one of the choice points, in other words, one of the decision-making pieces was the quality of the relationship you had with your brother?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would say he was really, I mean, I'd say I have a real support family as a full, but he was kind of always there, always talking to me, would always be hanging out and doing stuff. So it was just kind of like my go-to person to talk to. Okay.
So that helped, not only that he accepted it, but and he was focused on your well-being, but you made this call because that was the most apparent relationship, the one that was the most supportive for you?
Yeah, I'd say I felt like, I mean, it was most supportive, but also, I mean, partly it was his bike. So, I mean, to be honest, if it wasn't his, I'd have a hard time deciding if I was calling him or my father at that point. But,
okay.
I thought he'd understand. I thought and I was really afraid of him being upset about it, irrationally so. I get that, but still at the time I was.
Sure. So but you looked at this and you evaluated certain key points that made it your call brother, not dad or mom or one of your sisters. So what were those attributes you were looking at in your brother that said, he's the one I'm going to call?
I think the attributes that he had was like a protector.
Okay.
Was kind of a caregiver too. I mean, he was old enough, he was. And he was one of my role models. You know, we prior to this would be racing a lot, and I always worked to try and get to where he was at because he had a lot of skill, and so it was kind of multiple folds.
Okay. So, and I may have wordsmithed this a little bit as I put it down because I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So you reached out to your brother because he'd been your he had taken care of you. He'd been kind of your, looking out for you. He was the little brother, right?
Older. No.
You're the older brother.
Oh no, he's the older.
Okay,
Sorry,
so you're the little brother.
Yeah.
And then he was a role model that you looked up to. Mm-hmm. So those are pretty active reasons to do something. Was there any other?
I think those were the big ones. Okay. We just had a strong bond. I mean, still do to this day. But I just had a strong bond. When I was little, there's events where he would like if I was like say crying when I was a baby, he would be the one to pick me up and rock me because he always wanted a little brother. So he was a good caregiver. He was supportive.
Okay.
Emotionally, and he'd help me. So I mean, even if I needed help emotionally, physically, he was just completely supportive around the board.
Good. So that leaves us with, because I want to be fair and get around some of these others. Getting back on the bike, started fixing the bike, going to the gym, or talking to Brian. Which of these would be the next one to start with?
The next one would be honestly starting to fix the bike.
Okay.
The bike's sitting in the garage, kind of damaged. The entire side's a little messed up. The steering's bent. So starting to work on it, and this is again part of my brother is saying you need to start working on it, get it done. And giving me the kick out of the airplane right when your parachute.
So let me kind of see if I can put this in a. So was it that which brother? What's his name?
This is Alon.
Okay. So was it his prompting, or was it was the bike taunting you by being there? I had anger towards, I think, the bike a little bit, but I think that just represented the anger I had in myself that I did something stupid and I didn't think it through. Okay.
But his prompting was the one reason I, picked up the tool and started to do some work on it.
Okay, so when you picked it up, even under his prompting, did you beat the thing with it first?
Tore off a side panel. I wasn't gentle on it. I mean, when I got the parts, I was nice putting them on, but, it was damaged. So first thing I did was, you have the fenders. So the entire front of the bike is actually, you got the front of the bike and you got some side fenders. Mm-hmm. And I ripped off the back side fender where it goes in between the seat or the lower part of the seat and the tail light. So I tore that off because it was just messed up anyway and it was just hanging on barely. Tore off the side fender and I had to then start unscrewing it because the left side of the side fender connected to the front, connected to the other side. So as much angry, you got to start being nice to it and take off the other side. You're going to damage it more. So that was the first thing, and then.
So wait, so you started working the bike because your brother encouraged.
Yeah.
And, but even though he was encouraging you, how did you give yourself permission to actually go do it when you were still angry at the bike?
I think it goes back to the acceptance thing of when my brother said it, I was kind of like, he's right, I need to do it, and it's mostly because of the kind of like the level of authority I think I had placed in him, if that makes sense. But like if he said something, it was kind of like, okay, that means I need to do it. I didn't always think of or focus on the reason behind it. It was, well, he has my best interest, so I'm going to do it.
Okay. So his encouragement was adequate starting power on this. Okay. Was there any other reasons why, besides this, and what were the other reasons that you started to fix this bike?
Really, it was wanting to get it together, A, because he said it, and B, I still felt like I damaged his bike, and I needed to make that right.
So you also felt the need to make it, to repair it, the damage, restore it? How would you put that?
I guess put the value that I took out of the bike back into the bike.
Okay. Did your brother demand that of you, or was this just on your own?
That was on my own. He wouldn't have demanded that ever. He would have just given me the bike anyway, and if I had ever asked him to, but he wouldn't have demanded it at any point. He wouldn't have cared.
Okay. So you wanted to restore the value of the bike for your brother. You took his advice and his encouragement that started you on this process. And as you began to actually work on the bike, how did that have the effect of moving you down towards that 3?
Just to take off the damage and to fix it and to make it right, and having time on it gave me confidence on it, which kept the, I don't know how to say it, it's like the pitfall in your stomach started to take it away a little bit. I mean, it came back later when I got on it, but it took it away initially.
How would you state that? That working on the bike relieved you of what?
Anxiety.
Okay. So that's 3 of the reasons why you started this. Was there another one besides the fact that your brother encouraged you and you wanted to restore the value and it began to reduce your anxiety about the bike? What else?
And when I was younger, I don't agree with it back now, but when I was younger, I always think of that, how do you identify yourself, right? And how I identified myself was I was a rider, whether I was dirt bike or street bike. I was a racer. That was part of my identity.
Okay.
And it didn't feel great to give that up. So I kind of did want that part back, is to be able to get back on the horse and start riding again to match my identity a little bit.
Okay.
At that time I had shoes that were neon green that said Kawasaki. They were ridiculous looking. I still have them. But that was still part of that identity I took on, I think.
So I am a rider.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a piece of that. I am a writer is a part of identity, but you were also, and I'm not willing to give that up?
Yeah, because I didn't know what to replace it with.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's pretty good. We can play with these maybe a little bit later, but let's take it from here and go to the others. Mm-hmm. Getting back on the bike, talking to Brian, or going to the gym?
Talking to Brian, because he's part of what pushed me to the gym. And
Brian got you here?
A little, yeah.
Okay.
So Brian used to ride dirt bikes, so he kind of knew what I was going through a little bit. I've crashed dirt bikes, I've broken bones. They never hurt. The street bike did, and I don't know fully the difference between the two, because I've crashed a dirt bike a lot of times. I got back up and got back in the race and continued on. But I think the street bike really damaged me out I think part of with the leg, and shook my confidence more than anything else did. And talking to him, he understood that. But the big part was how I met him was through football.
Okay, you met Brian. So talking to Brian, he was a motorcycle and football buddy?
Yes, and I met him through football, and we bonded over motorcycles as well, because he was into dirt bikes, which I had previously been into before street bikes. And what he was saying is, man, I think the part that was important to him is he was emotional support, and he realized that it just wasn't feeling good. And I think I manifest a little bit in grades, kind of behavior, how I posture even.
So are you saying that you became a jerk?
I think I just wasn't very enthusiastic anymore.
Okay, so more of a depressive kind of presentation?
I would say it was more of a depressive presentation, and that he noticed that. And he had talked to me, and part of what it was like not being a part of the team anymore. A lot of my friends were football. I mean, that's how I knew them, and I lost connection through 90% of them because of that.
So was Brian, when you say emotional support, was he helping you mourn this loss of this relationship with the others, or how else? What else was he doing?
He was, but he was encouraging me to start doing something. He was encouraging me to get active physically, which I wasn't. I was kind of staying at home playing games. That was about it. I wasn't socializing as much. I'd go work out, but I'd be working out with the football team, and I cut that out of my day.
Sure.
And so what we had was 0 hour at school. So beforehand, you work out, part of the team, you work out later in the day, and then you practice, and that was after school. But that was part of it. So I cut that out, and I wasn't working out. I wasn't active, so I was kind of like, I was a lineman, so I already had weight. I was having more lineman, but I was putting on more, and just kind of losing muscle mass. So a big part of it was just talking to him. He was motivating me to get active again. He was motivating me to try and start actually going to the gym, start doing something.
So how did that encouragement come from him? Did he say, something like, "We are being a schlub," or was it more like, "Come and go with me"? How did that happen?
It was. It wasn't come and go with me. It was, you really need to get active. Like, you actually need to do something. And I think part of that was he'd call me up and say, "Do you want to go, grab some food? You want to go do something?" I'd say, "No, I'm not interested in it right now." Probably come up with some excuse, just don't want to go. And his thing was, he was motivating me to get active. He was trying to say, you need to kind of like, and this is not his words, but I have to remember exactly what he said, but he's saying you got to get an outlet, basically. You need to start moving, you need to start working out, you need to start doing something, because we were doing this all before. And there's kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but when you're working out, there's kind of like a high that comes with it. And in losing that, it was just kind of adding to, I don't want to do anything.
Okay. So Brian encouraged you to take some action.
Yes.
And he suggested working out as one of them?
He did, because I wasn't anymore. He said, you need to get back to the gym.
Okay. So, he's your good friend. You have these several connections together, sports and dirt bikes. How did you give yourself permission to act on his advice?
Because he wouldn't stop bothering me. And I was just like, kind of shut up at this point, is what I told him. I'll do it.
I'll go, leave me alone. Okay.
Yes, leave me alone, I'll do it. Like, don't do it. And I told him to shut up. I hope that's what I'm going to say. But yeah, I told him, all right, shut up, I'll do it. That's what I ended up saying.
So your friend basically nagged you into compliance.
Yes, yeah.
But even at that, what your decision-making process seems to be, you value this relationship enough that you're willing to take action rather than sacrifice this relationship.
Yeah, and it was like, just a nudge in the right direction, I think, did help me. And yeah, I didn't want to sacrifice it, but at the same time, I wasn't really wanting to, and I wouldn't go to the gym at the school. I would go to a separate gym, but I wouldn't go to the gym at the school because I lost too much off of, like, I was kind of like, all right, I'm not going to be able to put a 225 on the bench. I can't do that anymore. I'm not going to be able to leg press at all. I'm not going to be able to do squats at all. I can't do leg extension. I can't do leg curls. I'm not going to be able to do stair, and my running sucks. So it's kind of like, I'm not going to go there and have this weakness there. I'm going to go somewhere where I can feel safe doing a lesser degree than I was doing there, because it was very competitive there, and
Sure.
I like that. But
so you chose to act on his invitation, quote, nagging.
yes, yeah.
But you also were able to choose where you would do that at.
Yeah, and he didn't push where to do it at. He was pushing that I need to get it done, and my decision on that was, all right, I'll do it type thing, stop getting on me, but I'm going to go do this at a different gym.
Well, but it's reflective of a decision-making process. You're willing to take your friend's advice, but you also didn't want to be embarrassed, but you acted in a way that allowed you to meet your friend's suggestion that would also meet your need.
Yes.
So as you were kind of looking at that, do you remember going through that active kind of weighing of, where do I go? How do I do this?
How it was thinking, fine, I'll do it, but then thinking of going to the gym at the school was like, just wasn't a good feeling. And I think part of that was I had a lot, and I was kind of more senior on the lift. I don't know how many people were above me on being able to put ups, whether that was bench or leg press, but there wasn't a lot. I know 2 people who were, and I can't think of it. It's a long time. But my thing was, I'm going to be square one. I'm going to be back on the bottom peg. I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there and deal with that. Not that someone would ridicule me in any way, but not deal with the perceived.
So part of what has allowed you to move this from an 8 to a 3 was also taking care of your own ego needs. You didn't want to be embarrassed. You chose so you wouldn't have to experience that.
Yeah, and there was part of parts of my identity I wasn't willing to let go. And I think going there and starting on bottom peg would have been letting it go.
Okay.
To a degree. Because it's like how I felt, part of my self-esteem was linked into that.
As was the being a writer and being a powerful football player.
Yeah.
And okay, so
and that was self-esteem of things from the past. And if I went and did them and failed and didn't do as well, I would have lost that self-esteem. I couldn't say, well, I was a good football player. I'd have to say, I'm not. I'm not. Okay. I can't do the lifts. Okay.
So in looking at trying to resolve this, you acted in a way that allowed you to protect yourself and at the same time accomplish what your friend suggested that you needed to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So that shows some fairly sophisticated decision-making processes. Do you remember any time that you spent kind of thinking that through?
Not thinking it through, like it was almost like reacting to feelings. And what it was is, I don't want to deal with the nagging. Okay, fine, I'll do it. Absolute, thinking back, I can pull it apart more. Then, but then it was very tightly knit, and this is kind of a more faster process. And thinking about that gym said, no way, not going to happen. Thinking about a gym I went to when I was younger, prior to getting into football, said I could do it. Mostly older people there. I don't feel like I'm going to get judged on not being able to kind of lift or even trying to lift something on my leg.
Yeah, well, they're doing 25 pounds.
So I feel like I can be okay there.
Okay. So not only did you choose some place that would preserve your image of yourself, but you also chose a place that you could be safe. So those are pretty active choices.
Yeah.
And you made them not through consciously thinking, but as an emotional response. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was more feelings.
Okay.
I thought about going back to the gym in the school, and that feeling was bad, so I said no. So I thought, it's hot, it's, not able to do too much outside, and I thought, okay, the gym, I have good feelings about that place. I went there when I was younger, it went well, never felt judged. I know one of the trainers there, I still know him actually, but know one of the trainers there, I'd feel okay with that.
Okay. So, but there was a lot of pieces to that, and even though you made those decisions mostly through emotional responses, were you, before this situation, had you already learned to trust your emotional feelings in these decision makings, or was this something that was unique to this situation?
I trust my feelings. I think in most situations, if I felt bad, I'd be out of there. If I felt good, I'd be there type thing. It just kind of like if I went into a situation, had a bad feeling, I'd just kind of say, I got to go. Something doesn't feel right. So you gave yourself permission sometime in your history to pay attention to that sense of goodness, badness, right, wrongness that you experienced? Yeah, and that was kind of, I think, time with father was big on that. We were kind of like always, I'd describe the parenting as safety net. You got to make your decisions, and some of them didn't go well, but if you ever felt there would be a safety net. But you got to make the decision.
Okay. So that really covers Brian and the gym together. Tell me about getting back on the bike, because that's the only one we haven't really talked about yet.
That one's a little different. That one was hard because getting back on it was like weakness in my legs. I hurt my kneecap pretty bad, but that's not where I felt the weakness. It did hurt, but it was in my calves. There's a weakness in the calves. My leg still hurt, my right leg, from the crash. My biceps a little bit of tremble. My stomach felt like I just jumped out of an airplane. My head was a little foggy, and my shoulders were uptight. And it was just kind of like instant. I'm on it. Okay, I'm off. Feel pretty weak. Just want to sit down, but I'm on it, and it's just like a mixture of this like constant weakness, but constant like tensioning of muscles.
Okay. So your body tensed, and it affected your perceptions of the situation in yourself.
Yeah.
And then you got off the bike.
Yeah, I sat on it a little bit, and that wasn't bad. And then, but when I had my gear on, and I went and got on the road, that was a little tougher. And then riding was good when we started getting going. Initial turns weren't bad, but as soon as you had to lean in a turn, because and I think that goes back to the crash, because the crash I was leaning kind of far over. We used to race on the track and you'd be dragging your knee. Now I wasn't that far over when I crashed, but I was fairly far over. And going around corners at higher speed, the more you have to be over, the sharper the turn. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of turns around the movie theater I had left that night when I crashed. And that area I didn't really go to, but they were pretty sharp turns. So I didn't hit anything as sharp as that, but even the further over I leaned, the more pitfall in my stomach there would be.
So as your body moved into that arousal that we've talked about before, you noticed it in your diaphragm, stomach area first?
Stomach, always stomach.
Okay, so that's that diaphragm area kind of clenching up. And then for you, what was the next stage of that kind of dysregulated body thing?
So it would clench as soon as you went around the corner. You went up and it would start loosening up and you'd feel a little better. And I mean, it's still to this day though. I'm not going to say that's gone.
So when you're on the bike, you felt the clench in your stomach.
Yeah.
The normal kind of process of how that diaphragmatic arousal happens is at this time that is happening, your breathing changes. You tend to tense through the torso, shoulders, neck.
Yeah, chest a lot actually.
Okay.
Yeah,
so breathing changes. Okay. So how did you get yourself to the place where you could relax your body while being on the bike?
Fully? Mm-hmm. I haven't.
Okay, but you've made progress. Well, you're from an 8 to a 3.
It's from an 8 to a 3, but continuing to do it.
Okay.
And to not crash. And to be honest, we say, so if you ride a bike, you square the tires if you don't lean over far. If I got on a bike today, I'd probably still be squaring the tires. I wouldn't be leaning that much. So that's an issue. But to get to an 8 to 3 was just continuing to get on the bike, continuing to get off, and have a little more confidence that I'm not going to crash it.
Okay. So did you start with relatively short drives, long drives?
Short and easy.
Okay.
I never really, pretty much short and easy. The long rides would not be very twisty. Had a friend who wanted to go to the flats, and there's a lot of sharp turns over there, and I said no, not really willing to.
Okay.
Don't have that much confidence, and to this day I don't think I have that much confidence there as well. But just continuing to get on it and continuing to ride.
Even in the face of your body moving into a fear-anxiety response, mm-hmm. You made the decision to do this anyway, even though your body's having this experience.
Yes.
Okay. So how did you give yourself encouragement to do that in a face of that fear response or that anxiety response?
My brother.
So back to your brother, encouraged you to do it even...
He just... he's a strong guy. If you see him today, you'll be surprised. But back then, he was huge. He still beat my lift record, which was, I think his was at 350, and I think the most I could ever single hit was 325. And even then, that was, I wasn't repping it. I was repping 225. That was a max. But I think that was partly of what him, and just remembering his words of saying, you need to do it, and you need to, you just need to do it, get on it and do it now. You can't, to him, fear was only an issue as long as you let it be. And the only way you broke through fear is you did it. And then you just did it again, and you did it again.
So again, it was the role model, and how he chose to live. You were trying to emulate that.
Yeah, I would say so.
And so when you were faced with that kind of anxiety or fear, that was what would be the touchstone that allow you to move forward?
Yeah, just kind of saying it, whether that was out loud or in my head. Of just do it again, and just do it again, was part of it, and just continuing to ride. Don't anymore, but that's a different reason. But family now. Yeah,
married will do that to you.
Yeah.
Okay, so the getting back on the bike wasn't just a decision you made alone. Mm-hmm. It was, you didn't want to disappoint your brother. You wanted to emulate his behavior.
Yeah.
So you got on and took those rides, even though they made you uncomfortable, and that ability to have this experience and act anyway, kind of highlights a certain amount of tolerance or durability. Which of those sounds right? Tolerance or durability for you?
Durability.
Durability.
And to me, that's rolling with the punches, and getting back up again. And that's durability for sure.
Okay. So as we kind of gone through this, we've touched on a number of things, and I'm getting to the place where I've started to see some patterns emerge, but it's never for me to pick the pattern. So what I'd like to ask you to do is to take this and you connect the 3 or 4 things that seem to be the most connected for you. And that connection is really however you connect it. And then from that point, we'll move through kind of talking about that piece of it.
I see 2 separate patterns.
Well, let's just stay with one right now. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So can we take these 4 things that you've marked, or 5 things that you've marked, and kind of squinch them into a single statement that kind of captures the heart of these things? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to give that to you. So if you can, and then afterwards we'll probably wordsmith it a little bit. Okay. Can you read that for me?
Talking to my brother and the quality of the relationship, as well as his acceptance and encouragement, helped me as he was my role model.
Okay. Read it one more time.
Talking to my brother and the quality of the relationship, as well as his acceptance and encouragement, helped me as he was my role model.
Let's begin to kind of crunch it down into because the smaller the statement we can make it, the easier it is going to be for us to use it.
Okay.
talking to my brother, what does that say again?
Talking to my brother and kind of the quality of the relationship we had, as well as his acceptance and encouragement, helped me as he was my role model.
So I'm wondering if we could restate that to say something like, I reach out to my quality relationships for support. And it seems like, and a role model. Does that capture that?
You know, in the past he was. I think today, I don't see him as much. I see him as a
role model,
peer.
As a peer.
And I think
so. Is there more? Would it end here then?
I think so.
So read that part and see if that makes sense.
I reach out to my quality relationships for support, and I would say that makes sense because I do that with. I don't have as much of a. I have a good relationship with him, but we've been on. It's been hard to reach him for a while because he's been out of the country. So I do reach out to my quality relationships for support all the time.
Okay, so this feels right to you?
It does, and it's something I do. You know, when I'm stressed or anxious, I mean, my quality relationships, my wife, my parents, my family, my wife's family as well. I know her grandparents are supports, and you know, my friends. Okay. I have a couple friends.
So read it one more time and just make sure that it feels right to you.
I reach out to my quality relationships for support.
Okay.
Yeah, it feels right. It does feel accurate.
Okay. So if a situation came up and this is the way you decided to deal with it, what would be the very first thing we'd see you do that would say, oh, Davin is doing this?
The first thing you'd see me do would honestly be to call or message some people to look for support. That would probably be the first thing I'd do, is I would deal with what's in front of me. If something big came up, the first thing I would do, to be honest, I'd probably kind of hold it in for a second until it was a safe time to reach out. So
is that you're holding it in because you're evaluating, or because you're weighing it in some way? What do you?
I'm weighing it, and I'm waiting for a safe time to call people, and what I mean, or to message people and get some support. Like if it's something big happened and I have things to do, I'll kind of go into a mindset to get the things done I need to get done, and then I'll contact them. So if it's like an emergency setting, I'll deal with the emergency, and then I would reach out to them in the aftermath.
So as I'm hearing you say that, what popped into my head was I prioritize what I need to do.
Yes.
Would that be the first?
Yes.
Okay, let's put that down. So as you go ahead and read this statement again for me.
I reach out to my quality relationships for support.
Okay, so you prioritize what you need to do in the situation. What's the next thing that you would be doing?
After that, I hit what I need to do in order, from what I've prioritized to the least. So I go through the priority list, and once the event's settled, whatever that event is, I'll typically contact a few people.
So you prioritize, but is there something that goes before you're prioritizing? Are you evaluating the situation, or does that come afterwards?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I do I evaluate, and then I prioritize.
So let's put something above this one. So you evaluate the situation, and you prioritize. Then what's the next step that you take?
I commit to the action that I've evaluated, prioritized, and part of that prioritization is a plan. And then I commit to the action.
So you prioritize, then you you create a plan,
Yes.
or is prioritizing your plan?
The prioritizing is my plan.
Okay, and then you act,
Yes.
and you act on all of them at the same time. How do you determine which one you're going to act on?
Part of my prioritization is I deal with the most. It's kind of a multiple of like the urgency to it and how big of an an issue it is. And then that put together will tell me, this is my first, this is my second, this is the third, this is the fourth. And then I commit to that action, I hit it in that order.
Okay, so your prioritization, you now act on your priorities?
Yes.
Would that be next?
Yeah.
Could that, is there a better way to say that for you?
Prioritize what I need to do, and I commit to my plan of action, really.
Okay.
I think.
So you act or you commit to act on your priorities, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess what I do is I evaluate, I prioritize, and then I commit.
Okay, so put that in a statement for us. I think you have that here and here, so it's just the commitment would be next.
Oh, sorry.
Commit to act, or commit to your plan of action.
Yeah, kind of my plan of action is how I've always said it. My head is.
And then is the next thing, then you actually then act.
So yeah, at this point I've started to act.
Okay.
I've committed to the action I'm acting, and then, kind of upon the completion of that emergency, I will reach out for support.
Okay. So let's go through it again. What's the process you're going through from here down? In order of how I do it? Yeah, no, start here and then...
I reach out to my quality relationships for support. I evaluate the situation, then I prioritize what I need to do, and I commit to a plan of action.
Okay, is there anything else that needs to be added to that?
I can't think of anything. I mean, that seems to be how I think.
So read it one more time from beginning to end.
I reach out to my quality relationships for support. I evaluate the situation, then I prioritize what I need to do, and then I commit to a plan of action.
Okay. As you hear yourself say that, does it feel like that really captures what you do?
I think it does.
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty quick, but it does.
Okay. So we don't have to remember all this. Could we hang a name on it so that we could remember it easy?
You know, a name would be like my procedure.
Okay.
It's kind of how I...
Could we just shorten it to procedure?
Yeah.
So if I said, you were telling me something on the phone, and I said, well, is this a situation you use procedure in? What would it mean?
It would mean that I really reached out to my relationships, but I evaluated, prioritized, and committed to a plan of action.
Okay.
But I mean, I go through my process.
Okay. So would you prefer to use procedure or process?
Procedure.
Procedure.
Procedure hits home. Process describes it. Procedure hits home, though.
Okay.
Kind of odd.
No, that's fine. That's why we kind of have you come up with a name. Okay. So would you just write procedure up here then? So in a situation where if something happened that required you to act on it in some way, you could use procedure to do that.
I think if I practiced as well, I think it'd kick in for me, yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make something up real quick. You are out with your family and somebody runs a stop sign and T-bones your car. Mm-hmm. Could you use procedure in that time?
Yes.
How would it look?
I'd evaluate what happened. I'd evaluate who's injured. I have a medical bag in my trunk at all times, so I would get my medical bag, prioritize who needs the help first, help them, and then, prioritize that and then commit to my plan of action to help them. After the adrenaline's out of my system, then I'm going to probably reach out to my but when adrenaline hits, I'm pretty action orientated on that.
Sure. Think about it in this another way. You have a client that's really struggling, they've disclosed something that is really problematic. Could you use procedure to deal with that?
I think I could as well. I mean, because it's still going to lead to evaluating where they're at, prioritizing their needs and what they're really saying, and with what they're disclosing, committing to a plan of action, dealing with it, and then actually probably reaching out and getting their quality relationships as well. I mean, if I was taking on something from that, I would process it with someone. But yeah.
Okay. So, procedure makes sense to you. It's one of the ways that you move from an 8 to a 3. Okay. Yeah. And so we would call that procedure and just write it up on the board.
Yeah.
So, thank you.